Now we're going to look at the effects of capital flows as an interface between poor countries and the world. And we'll look at two types of capital flows: public capital flows and private. We'll start with public. Public capital flows is just a fancy way of saying foreign aid. And we're going to see that foreign aid, which is money for not delivering any economic activity in return, is a bit analogous to natural resource revenues, which are money for rents. So whether it's Nigeria getting money for its oil, or Tanzania getting money as aid, they're both, at least superficially, rather similar effects. In each case, the government gets some money without having to undertake economic activity. So, aid is a very long-standing area of analysis, but the thinking on it has changed quite dramatically over the years. When I was a student, we learnt that the purpose of aid was because poor countries were short of capital, and aid would provide the capital to enable them to get rich. Nobody really says much about that anymore, because subsequent to my being a student, world capital markets developed, and we realized that actually flows of international capital are predominantly private capital. And so if poor countries were short of capital, it was because private capital wasn't going there, and that needed to be understood. Aid became about political economy and policy. So by the 1980s, a lot of the sort of diagnosis of why some poor countries were staying poor was that their policies were dysfunctional. And so you got then a phase where aid was linked to trying to induce changes in public policy. It was called conditionality. We'll see in a moment why that was disastrous, in my view. After maybe about 10 years, people asked what in retrospect seems the obvious question: if economic policies are dysfunctional, there must be a choice, there has to be some explanation for them. They emerge out of some political process. They're not mistakes. And Robert Bates pioneered the idea that policies that looked dysfunctional, that were dysfunctional to most people, favoured the elites who held power in poor countries. And so that has been probably the dominant line of thought in the last 25 years. And so to understand aid, you need to understand how it affects elite interests. And then finally, and sort of in addition to that, as the most recent, as it were, intellectual fashion has been to emphasize the importance of building institutions. By institutions, people tend to mean rules, but at least a set of rules which constrain what politicians can do. And so there then becomes a question: how does aid affect the building of these institutions?